24/7 security solutions for homes and businesses. Call them today at 708-889-5600.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Returning to a story we discussed a bit earlier, the New York Times report on Graham Platner. Several women who dated Graham Platner recall quote-unquote unsettling behavior. Two women in particular profiled. Lindsay Fifield, Virginia conservative. That's how she's characterized. Recalled him as cavalierly contemptuous of women's emotions and our quote-unquote weakness, his description. A 41-year-old Maine Democrat, Jenny Rassicott, said when she saw his posts that have been turned into commercials, when I saw the old comments that he made online, I recognized a version of him that I had experiences with. The comments online are bizarre comments about rape, other such matters. For example, Fifield recalling that he would spout bizarre fantasies about raping home invaders. He said this a lot. If anybody ever broke in here, I would rape them. He was like, I would rape them to show them I'm dominant. Adding that he would clarify he wouldn't be raping the hypothetical intruders in a, quote, sexual way, not in a gay way, unquote. She claimed that he would leave the assault rifle lying around in the apartment and a sharp forestry axe that he would hone while he watched TV and offered his thoughts on rape and killing people. He would talk about killing people he considered a threat and how rape was an act of power, she said. Okay. In addition to that, there were allegations of, well, assault. I mean, he didn't punch her, but he, according to her, grabbed her hard enough on the shoulders when they were having disagreements that it hurt and he left marks. This was Graham Platner responding on MS Now to this story after Chris Hayes is properly deferential leading up to getting his response.
Graham Platner, Democratic candidate for Senate in Maine, joins me now. Mr. Platner, it's good to have you on. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
I just want to say at the start that, we've had you on before, and I think you and I are both people that in other contexts talk about income inequality and healthcare and all those issues, which are extremely important, and we devote a lot of time to on this program. This is not, the thing that we spend a lot of time chasing. But there's some serious stuff there I want to go through with you, and I think voters have a right to know about it. And I want to start with what Ms. Fifield says about being rough is the term the Times. And I'm going to just read you the account so you have it. This is from the Times. Mr. Platner could be rough with her, Ms. Fifield said, particularly when they were drinking, leaving her shaken and sometimes afraid. In the interviews, she grappled with how to process her experiences. She was quick to note, he never hit me, he never punched me. She said he regularly grabbed her by the shoulders, sometimes hard enough to leave marks. On one occasion, yanked her out of a cab by her wrist after an argument in which she wanted to stay in the car. During one argument, she recalled he twisted her arm behind her back, shoved her into a bedroom, and held the door closed from the other side so she couldn't get out, telling her to remain there until she was calm. Eventually, Ms. Fifield said she fell asleep and left the next morning. It hurt, she said, but she added, it didn't cause any injury. It didn't break my arm. Did that happen?
No, it did not. There are some allegations in this piece that I just want to be kind of unequivocal about are simply not true. Anything alleging physicality, anything alleging that I knew what my tattoo was, these are the statements of someone who's politically motivated. In this piece, there's a lot about my struggling, not being a good boyfriend, certainly self-medicating with alcohol, and I've been very upfront since the beginning of this campaign that was a pretty dark period of my life after I came back from my combat service, and that's what that kind of life looks like. And so there are things in this that I absolutely will take responsibility for and have been speaking about openly for months now. But those serious allegations are just not true.
And his fellow travelers are still hanging on to him. And the way they're doing it is by, well, offering ever-evolving standards of appropriate conduct for someone seeking high office, like Senator Michael Bennet explained, Colorado senator running for governor.
I think that it's really important for us to have a standard of public behavior for our elected officials. I know there are a lot of elected officials that don't meet that standard.
I mean, you obviously don't think the president meets that high standard that you're talking about. Does Graham Platner meet that high standard in your view?
Well, I definitely don't think the president meets that standard. He
But what
doesn't
about
meet
Graham
that
Platner?
standard. I think I think that's a fair question. That is what the election in Maine is going to partly be about.
What's your view?
I'm busy running for governor of Colorado.
Yeah, I don't have time to apply my standards to everybody running. You know, I've got other things to do. Sure, of course. For more on this, please be joined by Mollie Hemingway, editor-in-chief of the Federalist, senior journalism fellow at Hillsdale College, Fox News contributor, best-selling author of Alito, The Justice Who Reshaped the Supreme Court and Restored the Constitution, her book, Alito. And she's coming to town. She's going to be in town a week from today, Friday, June 12th, Saturday, June 13th, for the Making the Case Conference, which is happening at Concordia College. You can get more information, Concordia University. You get more information, at issues, etc., issuesetc.org, issuesetc.org for more information on the conference next weekend, where she's a speaker, and so is Ron DeSantis and others next weekend. Mollie, thanks so much for joining us again. Appreciate it.
It's great to be here with you.
So the curious case of Graham Platner.
Yeah, this is quite the situation that is that the voters of Maine are getting to deal with. In the latest revelations about his poor treatment of women are just that, the latest revelations. People in Maine, left-wing people in Maine, like him because of his left-wing economic and social policies. But many voters are concerned by things like his Nazi tattoo. And I heard what you just played there about how he said that Lindsay Fifield, and I will admit that full disclosure, know this person. She lives here in D.C. That he's saying that she lied when she said she knew about his Nazi tattoo. The New York Times reviewed texts that she had written long before this became public, talking about his Nazi tattoo. It is a pathological lying type situation to say that she is lying when she says she knew about his Nazi tattoo before he says, he claims, oh, I had a Nazi tattoo, but I didn't realize it was a Nazi tattoo.
Right.
The idea that she would know it's a Nazi tattoo, but he wouldn't, boggles the mind. And it's, again, this type, I know politicians lie, we're all used to that, but this is a pathological type lying situation, it seems to me.
Well, yeah, and he also, I didn't know it was a Nazi tattoo, and it was a dark period in my life. Well, what is whether it was a dark or bright period have to do if you didn't know? It sounds like you're explaining why you got the Nazi tattoo while denying that you got the Nazi tattoo,
Yeah, it's such a good point, and it doesn't make any sense, and it's something that you wouldn't accept if your children, gave you excuses like this. And this guy's running to be a senator. It's also so fascinating to me that he's running to be a senator against truly the most moderate person in the Senate, Susan Collins. Sometimes people try to justify really radical policies or people or bad behavior, but say, oh, it's so important that we fight this person that they're running against. Susan Collins? Really? Like, this is who everyone agrees is the most moderate person in the Senate, not a radical, right-wing Republican or anything like that. And yet, even here, people are willing to vote for Graham Platner, Nazi tattoo-wearing, girlfriend-abusing or harming Senate candidate.
Yeah, I would have liked Caitlin Collins to ask Michael Bennet if he thinks Susan Collins or Graham Platner come closer to the standards public officials need to be held to. Who's closer? I don't think Susan Collins has been embroiled in any sexting scandals recently, but I'm not positive on that.
nothing of the kind, never even a hint or of an allegation against her. But it is, it is a pickle that Democrats are in because this guy isn't just bad. And, a lot of politicians have trouble or cheat on their wives or something. This is really a whole nother level of inappropriate behavior that we're hearing about.
Well, the word used, the pathological lying, it's not just about the tattoo. It's about everything. It's about his upbringing. It's about his business. It's about other people's military service. I mean, it's just one thing after the other that doesn't hold up. It's about Susan Collins sending him off to war. I mean, all these things that are just obviously untrue, and it's every aspect of his life where he where the truth is a stranger.
And it's also about things like his presence on online platforms that are known for abuse of, where bad actors play, that he was still on until just this week. It's about his wife telling the campaign he's sexting with other women right now during our marriage. They've only been married, I think, 2 years.
Yeah. During
this marriage, he's been with other women. So what's interesting is the actual reason why Maine voters should be concerned about him is probably his politics, right? Like, he really is radical. He's a child of wealth, of extreme wealth. He had elite privilege at the schools he went to, and yet he wants to destroy the American system. He's radically opposed to the market, to rule of law. So those are even bigger issues for the people of Maine than his personal bad behavior. But this is going to make it very difficult for them to win this race if he wins the primary.
Yeah, and I mean, again, just the mindset too. I mean, these weird comments about rape and masturbation and all sorts of things that he felt compelled to announce publicly. I mean, it just speaks to somebody that is not mentally healthy, let's say.
Right. And, many men have come back from combat, and we all agree that this can be a very difficult situation for people without resorting to the type of extreme sexual behavior or horrible treatment of other people. And he seems to be trying to get a lot excused by the fact that he was a Marine. But being a Marine is not a sufficient trait to having been a Marine is not a sufficient trait to be elected to the Senate, particularly when you have all of these other issues. But, it's like there's so many people with these problems, too. It's not just Graham Platner. It's that guy who just won the primary in New Jersey, who's a literal supporter of Al-Qaeda. I mean, the Democrat Party seems to be having trouble just nominating normal people.
Yeah,
who have normal mainline positions.
Adam Hemingway, and I mean, talk about insults to injury. I think it was Guy Benson who pointed this out. The district that he is running to represent, and likely will because it's a majority Dem district, was the home of Todd Beamer, Flight 93 hero. It was his home district. I mean, it's like thinking about, 9/11, thinking about this 25 years later, and Mamdani is the mayor of New York City, and Hemingway is going to represent a district in New Jersey that was the home of Todd Beamer. I mean, what are we doing? And the thing about these races, too, and Platner's included in the mix, Karen Bass and Becerra, ostensibly are in the mix. When they get this much attention, they become national branding exercises for both parties. So, you may not be voting in Maine, but you know about Graham Platner because he's this ridiculous, grotesque candidate. And that redounds to the detriment of, those running under the same party banner.
Well, and you think about it, it's the 250th anniversary of our founding. I don't know how you feel about this, but it seems like half the country's pretty patriotic. Half the country actually kind of hates America, has been taught to hate the ideals, the founding. And you see it in the candidates that are being put forth. You mentioned Karen Bass. I mean, this is someone with actual communist ties. She was just touting that she had the support of another person with communist ties, Jane Fonda, who's getting up there. But these are the people and the ideas for the 250th anniversary of our country. It's alarming, and it's also, I think, something that conservatives should be thinking much more about in terms of how seriously to take these threats. That someone who supported Al-Qaeda could be elected just 25 years after 9/11, it's not a good sign for the country, and it's not a good sign about what we've done with our immigration policy, our culture, are making sure that our culture enforces our values over time. These are pretty serious problems.
Yeah. Speaking of California, there's growing concern that Spencer Pratt may indeed not make the runoff by the time they finish counting to get the result they want. I mean, this, of course, is all the suspicion that's afoot. But I mean, what do you think would happen? What would the reaction be, outside of Spencer Pratt, do you think, if we go through this vote count for another couple of weeks and it turns out that it's going to be Bass and Rahman in the runoff, maybe even Becerra and Steyer in the runoff? Somehow, once all the votes are counted, the Republicans are, even though Pratt's running, nonpartisan, he leans right, clearly. The Republicans are out on the outside looking in. I mean, I would think that would be a huge election integrity issue that could be leveraged if that were to come to pass.
Well, even if they survive this extensive weeks-long vote counting process, this is an abomination. This is an embarrassment for a first world country. In fact, I think it's really evidence that LA and California are adopting third world tendencies. This idea that it is in any way acceptable to spend weeks or even months to count votes. And by the way, it's not just that they're counting counting votes over weeks. They change the number of ballots that they're counting each day. They'll say, oh, now it's this number, or not, meaning the total number of ballots, because you can keep voting and you can keep collecting ballots from different places. This is not the way you want to run an election if you want anyone to have any trust whatsoever. And yet this is what California has done, and really has done for decades, but they have been taking seats away from Republicans or manipulating the system for years. And it's why so many California Republicans are demoralized, because it makes it very difficult to fix the problems in the state when the people who control the counting of the ballots are not handling things with integrity.
I had to get your take before we let you go on the sacking of Scott Pelley, because it's a sign the apocalypse is near. It's the end, the veritable end of Western civilization if Scott Pelley leaves. 60 Minutes. Brandy Cruz, this is one of my favorite posts on the topic. Brandy Cruz posted, I was an intern at CBS when Pelley would fill in for Katie Couric on the evening news. I watched in the control room one day as he directed them to slowly push the shot in on him as he took his glasses off. It was so fake, I've remembered it for 15 years. I mean, this guy was the living embodiment of pomposity, to say the least. And I just love all of these leftist journalists that, that do reporting with a particular political goal in mind, now decrying CBS News and Barry Weiss and this new 60 Minutes producer they hired because they got rid of Scott Pelley because he was being so obnoxious and unyielding. And, we're going to get somebody who's going to work with us. I'm the boss here. I don't know what you're doing.
Everything about Scott Pelley reminds me of that movie Anchorman. The people who are really stupid, who are reading lines off of a teleprompter, thinking that they're important. And Scott Pelley is so arrogant without any intellectual weight behind him to be that way. And he was recently saying that he said, I can't believe I've been fired. I served in combat in Iraq and Afghanistan. No, you didn't. You read TV lines near people who were in combat. But this does show how much the left relies on corporate media. They're horrified that he's out because they need 60 Minutes to continue to be Democrat propaganda. And they need CBS News to be one of those main networks that pushes Democrat propaganda. And this has been so nefarious for the country, how the media treat these things, and how much help they give the Democrats over the Republicans. And it's somewhat insane that we have allowed this to continue for so many decades.
Mollie Hemingway is the editor-in-chief of The Federalist, Federalist.com, senior journalism fellow at Hillsdale College, Fox News contributor, best-selling author of Alito, the justice who reshaped the Supreme Court and restored the Constitution. And again, the book is Alito. And again, the conference that she is speaking at, along with Ron DeSantis and others, next weekend, the 12th and the 13th of June at Concordia University in River Forest. For more information, to get tickets, you go to issues, etc., issuesetc.org. Mollie, thanks so much for joining us. Continued success with the book, and good luck with the conference.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care. And she joined us on the alphawealthgroup.com answer line.
Hear about the big stories of the day, then talk about them right here on Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Every morning, students and faculty fill your school's hallways. And every morning, parents trust you to know who's there with them. With ID Supply, that trust is earned and visible. From student and staff ID cards